You know all the lyrics, but do you know what the song's really about? Some of your favorite karaoke tunes have stories behind them that'll forever change the way you think about them.
Queen songs have fascinated fans for decades, and their greatest hits can make even the largest stadium audience sing and clap hands like there's no tomorrow. But what did it take to create these massive tunes? Let's take a look at some of the stories behind Queen's most popular songs. We Will Rock You and We Are the Champions are so catchy and easy to join in on, it almost seems like they were specifically designed that way. Well, they were. Both songs were actually inspired by a concert Queen played at a UK venue called Bingley Hall on May 29, 1977. The band was already accustomed to gigs where fans were singing along, but Bingley Hall was a game changer. According to Brian May, the audience was so loud that they turned the event into a giant impromptu rock choir. The band had to stop the show and allow the crowd to perform for them instead of the other way around. After that, both May and Freddie Mercury wanted to craft songs specifically meant for audience participation. May contributed the stomping, hand-clapping We Will Rock You, while Mercury came up with the powerful We Are the Champions. Freddie Mercury had a lifelong relationship with a woman named Mary Austin. Austin actually briefly dated Brian May, and she met Mercury sometime after her relationship with May ended on good terms. The singer's feelings toward Austin were quite genuine, as they lived together for 7 years, and he reportedly said she was the only person he truly loved. However, Queen's popularity grew, and Austin felt uncomfortable in Mercury's new celebrity circles. Thinking that Mercury would eventually lose interest in her, she tried to break up with the singer, but he refused to let her go and tried to keep them together by writing several songs about her. Love of My Life was the most famous of those songs, but ultimately it wasn't enough. Mercury soon came clean with numerous infidelities with men, and the surprised Austin finally left him.
So I enjoyed the fact that he was able to be honest and frank with me.
However, they remained extremely close for the rest of Mercury's life, and Austin became something of a muse to him. Their relationship was so strong that Austin dropped everything to devote herself to Mercury's care as he was dying, and Mercury left her the lion's share of his fortune. Don't Stop Me Now is an empowering anthem to feeling completely unstoppable and taking on the world. But after Mercury's death in 1991, May revealed that the song was about a particularly difficult period in the vocalist's life. At the time, Mercury was at his most hedonistic, and the rest of the band members were worried about their friend, who basically wrote an ode to his own dangerous excesses. Still, even the singer's death wasn't enough to cast a shadow over the song's gleeful ode to decadence. Despite not performing particularly well on the charts when it was released as a single, Don't Stop Me Now has become one of Queen's most popular tracks. In 1981, David Bowie met Queen in Switzerland, where the 5 musicians decided the best way to get acquainted would be to jam together. John Deacon broke the ice with the iconic bass line for Under Pressure, and the group descended into a wine and drug-fueled marathon jam fest that turned into a song. The famous vocals were recorded by the tripping singers letting out whatever crossed their minds. This peaceful coexistence endured a small crack the very next day, when Bowie remixed the track into a version that Freddie Mercury disliked. The two had an intense argument, but didn't seem to bear a grudge.
We were friends, and sometimes when different artists come together at the right time, and if the characters are right, that's more important than anything.
Now I'm Here is a song about the most classic of rock song subjects, touring. As Queen Complete Works describes, Brian May started working on the autobiographical song while the band was on the road, supporting Mott the Hoople in 1974. However, the actual writing process was difficult because May's year was plagued by illness, from gangrene to hepatitis to an ulcer. He was so worried that his bandmates would replace him because of his health troubles that he became deeply depressed.
Yeah, I would like to tell you that there was a glimmer of hope there, but there wasn't at that time, no.
Instead, the rest of the band doubled down on their support, and they focused on writing new material as they waited for him to heal. May thanked them for the vote of confidence with Now I'm Here, which became one of the most performed songs in the band's career. If you pay attention, you'll find that You're My Best Friend isn't actually just about friendship. It's actually bass player John Deacon's love song to his wife, Veronica. The year was 1975, and the only song Deacon had written for the band was the unassuming Misfire. At the time, the band had an electric piano that Freddie Mercury hated, so Deacon hauled it home and started learning to play. He describes You're My Best Friend as the song that simply came out of the piano when he was practicing, and to this day, he feels that it sounds best on that particular instrument. The rest of the group was so floored that they even released the poppy tune as the follow-up single to Bohemian Rhapsody. Radio Gaga, one of Queen's most famous songs, was also one of their most controversial single choices. Capitol Records weren't pleased that their expensive signing's first single release was going to be a song that turned the downfall of radio into a rock chant. Capitol president Jim Mazza even drafted some less controversial lyrical ideas and sent them to the band, but it's unclear if any of the changes were ever implemented. Roger Taylor says the song wasn't meant to be a statement against radio and actually criticized the era's emphasis on music videos. The band had also acquired some clips from Fritz Lang's Metropolis and decided to use those in the music video for the song. As a result, the song that's criticizing music videos produced one of Queen's finest music videos. According to Denise Sullivan of AllMusic, Somebody to Love is Freddie Mercury's heart-wrenching testimony to the universe. A ballad that functions as a pleading, soul-searching question. In a life without love, what's God's function? It's easy to see all this desperation and heartbreak as the singer's own. Roger Taylor offered an alternate interpretation in an interview with Circus Magazine, saying that the band was actually just influenced by Aretha Franklin, and they were deliberately playing things pretty loose to get that gospel style. So, is this Freddie Mercury's personal scream of anguish, or just a rock band attempting to pay homage to the Queen of Soul? In fact, it's entirely possible to do both at the same time. Still, one thing is certain, leave it to Queen to create a gospel song about how God may not be all that, and still have it reach number 2 on the charts. I Want It All is an anthem to determination. Queen, album by album, says the track was inspired by Brian May's second wife, Anita Dobson. When they were still a new couple, Dobson was present at the band's concert at Wembley Stadium. Some people recognized her and applauded for her. But instead of being intimidated with the huge masses, she said what would become the song's chorus, "I want it all, and I want it now." May placed Dobson's ambitious saying at the heart of a powerful riff rock anthem that he submitted for the album The Miracle. Although the band was at a point where they had agreed to split all writing credits equally, John Deacon noted that I Want It All was essentially a finished song before they even headed into the studio. Unfortunately, due to Freddie Mercury's failing health and inability to tour, the powerful track was never performed live by its original singer. The assorted stories behind Killer Queen are unusual and at odds. The generally accepted story is that the number 1 single from 1974 is about a courtesan, which was directly confirmed by Mercury himself. Mercury said he wrote the song about a high-class prostitute and that he wanted to express that even people from the upper echelons of society can still have flexible morals. However, if you read into the song with a little bit of the band's history, you come to media personality Eric Hall.
He said, Eric, that's about you. I said, what about me? You're a killer queen.
Hall was actually in the band's atmosphere during the era and even worked as their radio plugger at the time. The BBC repeats Mercury's statements that the song is about a completely fictional call girl, but Hall himself seems to have confirmed that it's all about him. Why not both? Either way, it boasts some of Mercury's best work. As Roger Taylor said in the documentary Days of Our Lives, Killer Queen always felt a bit special. It was very sophisticated, and it was very Freddie. Save Me is a tragic and emotional song about a man whose relationship is falling apart and who is truly at his wit's end. Brian May wrote it about his friend who was undergoing the fracturing marital situation described in the song. Even though he composed the track, May wasn't the only one pouring emotion into it. Freddie Mercury liked to belt the power ballad out like it was a personal statement, which might not be too far from the truth. As Rolling Stone points out, the singer's own emotional and relationship issues also fit into the lyrics surprisingly well. Was the friend May was writing about secretly Mercury all along, or did the song just resonate with the vocalist? Regardless of the answer, this incredibly heartbreaking song has recently given its name to one of May's current pet projects, the Save Me Trust, a foundation for, protecting badgers?
Brian May here. It seems that for wildlife all around the planet, the candle is about to burn out.
Alright, maybe people are reading too much into the song. In early 1980, John Deacon stopped writing simple pop songs and ushered the rest of the band into the world of funk. Although they had flirted with funk on a couple of tracks, the songs had always sounded like, well, Queen. Deacon introduced crisp, dry drums and a bass-driven rhythm, and a relatively simplistic production where Freddie Mercury's voice was the only element that was a recognizable Queen staple. Though Roger Taylor vocally opposed releasing Another One Bites the Dust as a single, others disagreed, and it became a #1 hit in the US. It was so different from their usual fare that some radio stations actually labeled it as an obscure single by a little-known African-American R&B band. But the song had another layer to it, the unexpectedly dark lyrics. Although official comments about the words are few and far between, the bullet-slinging lyrical content is generally agreed to be inspired by the notorious St. Valentine's Day Massacre in Chicago in 1929. When you look past Mercury's cool vocals and the funky bass line, the song does indeed hide some surprisingly straightforward descriptions of violence.
I think we'll go with a little Bohemian Rhapsody, gentlemen.
Good call.
One of the biggest unanswered questions about Queen is what's up with Bohemian Rhapsody? What's it really about? The answer to what do the literal words mean, according to a leaflet included with an Iranian cassette of Queen's greatest hits, is that the song is about a young man who has accidentally killed someone and, like Faust, sold his soul to the devil. He later calls out to God, and God helps him get his soul back from the devil. Okay, fine, that's interesting, but why would Queen write this song? Is it a coming out song? Maybe it's about Freddie's youth. Sorry, but we don't know. The best we can do is gather some tiny snippets. No one who is actually around for the production of the song will say what Freddie was imagining or describing to them when they worked it all out. Producer Roy Baker was there, but he told the New York Times it was generally agreed with Queen that Mercury was allowed to keep the true stories behind their songs a secret. Freddie only ever said that the song was about relationships, and the other people who know have all kept buttoned up so far.
From the early 80s to the early 90s, Motley Crue defined the hard rock and glam metal that burst forth from the Los Angeles club scene. A little dark and definitely crazy, Motley Crue changed the game. Here are the true stories behind some of Motley Crue's most popular songs. Upon first glance at the title or one listen to Kickstart My Heart, one would assume that this hard-charging hit off Motley Crue's 1989 blockbuster Dr. Feelgood album is a song about the transformative properties of love. But this is a Motley Crue song, and those guys don't pour their hearts out about romance all that often. They prefer instead to make songs about booze, drugs, parties, and girls, girls, girls. Kickstart My Heart is actually a literally titled account of bassist and songwriter Nikki Sixx's brush with death. According to Ultimate Classic Rock, on December 23, 1987, Styx partied with Steven Adler and Slash from Guns N' Roses and Robin Crosby of Rat and gave himself one syringe full too many of his party drug of choice, heroin. He turned blue, received mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, and was eventually brought back from the dead by paramedics. They gave him a shot of adrenaline that quite literally kick-started his heart.
Thank God, even though I don't think it was God, it was a paramedic, for the adrenaline shots into my chest.
An album title ultimately stems from where the artist was, mentally, musically, or geographically, at the time they created those songs. Motley Crue titled its 1987 album Girls, 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 which Rolling Stone accurately called a paean to excess, because those words and the dancer-chasing events described in its title track accurately described the band's existence at the moment. Nikki Sixx told Rolling Stone, "We were riding motorcycles and hanging out in strip clubs. We were off the road. We were young guys having fun, man." To that end, Sixx gives shout-outs to 7 real-life strip clubs from around the US and Girls, Girls, Girls. He told Entertainment Weekly, "I've been to a strip club in every country in the world when we were younger, and that song is always played in every strip club around the world."
It's, a classic. I mean, we got inducted in the Stripper Hall of Fame because of that song.
In the early 1980s, soap operas, and ABC's General Hospital in particular, experienced a massive spike in popularity. The show's musically inclined star Rick Springfield parlayed his exposure to become one of the early 80s biggest pop rockers, while co-star Jack Wagner also reached #1 with his soft rock standard All I Need. Why all this soap talk in a Motley Crue video? Because Nikki Sixx called out Wagner by using the title's Wagner one and only hit in his song You're All I Need. The track off 1987's Girls, Girls, Girls is a song about a jealous guy straight up murdering his lover. Yikes. In his memoir, The Heroin Diaries, Styx revealed that he wrote the song when he was certain that his girlfriend at the time was cheating on him with Wagner. Styx told Rolling Stone, "Word got back to me that she was seeing some other guy. The premise of the song was based on killing your girlfriend, and I took the cassette over to her apartment and I didn't say anything. I just played it for her, and she started crying, and I walked out the door." Motley Crue reached its commercial peak in 1989 with the release of Dr. Feelgood. Its best-selling album by far, the Recording Industry Association of America certified it 6 times platinum. It also generated the band's first of 2 top 10 singles, a song called Dr. Feelgood. It's not the usual top 40 radio fare, considering it's about dope pushers. While Nikki Sixx struggled with drugs, particularly heroin, for so long and so severely that he published a memoir called The Heroin Diaries, Dr. Feelgood didn't start with lyrics, but with an unforgettable riff generated by Motley Crue guitarist Mick Mars. Sixx told Entertainment Weekly that after he heard it just a few times, the chorus's lyrics popped into his head. He said, "I went, he's the one that called Dr. Feelgood, he's the one that makes it feel all right. I have no idea why, it all just rolled together."
If it wasn't for the way Mick played guitar, it would just be a ratty punk rock song.
As Sixx fleshed out the song, he dug a little deeper. He told Rolling Stone, "It's a story of things I've seen running up the street, things the guys have experienced on the street, some made-up characters and some that are actually real." Sixx added that the song was inspired by drug dealers, and not just one because, in his words, a good addict always has more than one dealer. Songs about strippers and domestic homicides notwithstanding, Motley Crue did have a sensitive, romantic side, which they showed off very, very rarely. But as most every other hair metal band fell prey to a soaring power ballad, like Skid Row's I Remember You and Warren's Heaven, Motley Crue came down on the side of love with its gooey 1989 prom song, Without You. Nikki Sixx wrote the song, but he didn't write it about himself. He came up with it when he was an outside observer of the then sweet and lovely relationship between bandmate Tommy Lee and his girlfriend Heather Locklear, star of Melrose Place, and the only woman in LA with hair as big as Lee's. Sixx told Rolling Stone, "That was a very simple idea for a song, which I had written a lyric about Heather Locklear and Tommy. They were coming over to my place at the time, and I thought to myself one day, without you, coming from Tommy's perspective, life would not be the same." It's a mini-genre of 70s and 80s classic rock into itself. Bittersweet songs about how hard it is to be a band touring the world and playing packed stadiums and arenas each night while also missing the comforts and people back home. There's Bob Seger's Turn the Page, Journey's Faithfully, and the hardest rocking one of all, Motley Crue's Home Sweet Home. The band thought the song was so nice they released it twice. Once for the 1985 album Theater of Pain, and then a remixed version 6 years later called Home Sweet Home 91. It was a much bigger hit the second time around, hitting number 37 on the pop chart then compared to number 89 originally. On the concert DVD, Motley Crue The End, live in Los Angeles, Nikki Sixx said he wrote the song as a reaction to being gone so long during the Shout at the Devil tour. He explained, "It was our first time. A tour bus picked us up at our little tiny apartment and we took off to play some shows, and 18 months later we got dropped back in our little apartments."
That song really was, for us, was our dream on, or our stairway to heaven.
While Vince Neil, Sixx, and their respective partners were leaving the LA club The Rainbow one night, Sixx saw a biker hassling and propositioning some young women. He wrote in The Dirt, "The bikers had declared war on the rockers back then. We asked him to stop. He glared at us and told us to off." That's when Sixx stopped being polite. He took off the chain he was wearing like a belt and, quote, started swinging it in the air trying to crack skulls. In the resulting brawl, a biker bit Sixx's hand through to the bone, prompting the musician to beat the man in the face with his chain. And then, just like that, the fight was over when the biker produced a gun and said, "You're under arrest, mother." A latecomer to the brawl, this man was one of 2 undercover cops, who Sixx says hit him in the face with their nightsticks, giving him a black eye and a broken cheekbone before loading him into a police car. After making bail, he walked home, met the band, and played a show that night. Later that night, Sixx says he pulled out a lined yellow notepad and vented, writing a draft of what would become the second verse of Shout at the Devil's album cut, Knock 'em Dead, Kid. Motley Crue is almost as well known for its members' abilities to romance beautiful women as it is for their songs about romancing beautiful women. Tommy Lee married actress Heather Locklear in 1986 and Baywatch star Pamela Anderson in 1995. Nikki Sixx was at one time hitched to Playboy playmate Brandy Brandt, as well as another Baywatch star, Donna D'Errico. It doesn't seem that any of those relationships ended with the woman leaving a Motley Crue guy for another woman, but that's what Same Old Situation is about. Without naming any specific personal instances, Vince Neil told Rolling Stone, "That's about chicks leaving you for chicks. It happens. It definitely happens." Sixx added that Elektra Records executives really loved the song on their first listen, deeming it perfect for a single. He vowed to keep secret that the song was actually about same-sex relationships, which wouldn't have gone over well with mainstream radio in 1989. Only the members of a band like Motley Crue could be brazen, arrogant, and unapologetic enough to make a concept album about themselves. After the band's absolutely shocking group memoir, The Dirt, Confessions of the World's Most Notorious Rock Band, became a bestseller upon its release in 2001, and subsequently an iconic rock biography, the Crue were feeling more than a little nostalgic. They got back together to record their first new album with the original lineup in more than a decade, Saints of Los Angeles, which hit stores in 2008.
When you listen to the album, it's almost like watching a movie, to me.
While so many Motley Crue songs are based on things that actually happened to Nicky Sixx and his hedonistic bandmates, Saints of Los Angeles is a concept record that Sixx told reporters was loosely based on The Dirt. That means this is a Motley Crue album about, well, Motley Crue.
Pretty much the story of our life is that album.
The title track is specifically about the band's early taste of success. Guitarist Mick Mars told Ultimate Guitar, "Saints of Los Angeles is about us signing our record deal with Elektra." Motley Crue's hit 1990 single Don't Go Away Mad, Just Go Away demonstrates some rare cheeky humor from the band. The lyrics to the Nicky Sixx-Mick Mars collaboration also wryly reference another Motley Crue song, the 1983 Shout at the Devil track, Too Young to Fall in Love. It's about ending a relationship on ideal terms, with a couple choosing not to fight but to remember the good times and to part amicably. Or, just go away instead of going away mad. Sixx didn't base it on the end of an actual relationship from his own life, but rather was inspired to write the song when he heard somebody else, a fictional character, use the phrase. He told Rolling Stone, "I saw that line in a movie somewhere." What movie? Well, he can't remember where the phrase originated, but he did see the potential. He added, "I thought, great idea for a song, a little tongue-in-cheek, a little sarcasm there."